You know, Overstock.com CEO Patrick Byrne really never much flipped over Elliot Spitzer, said he was more show than substance, more intimidating drama than solid legal ace, that he was essentially a bully, an ogre, and to our financial system itself, maybe even a threat. He said stuff like that, while other CEOs were whispering to me, he's right, Neil, he's right. But they wouldn't say the same thing. Now Spitzer's going, and count one, Patrick Byrne delighted. Pat, good to see you. Welcome.
Great to be back, Neil.
I remember you saying all this stuff.
Why, thank you.
And you, what was it you never liked about him?
Well, first of all, I do condolences to his family, New York, and him. Nobody, Lao Tzu says, in war's victory, keep the funeral ceremony. You shouldn't dance on the people's graves. But I've been saying for about 2.5 years that there's a group of hedge funds who are doing some dirty stuff around Wall Street. It's going to bring around a financial collapse. The SEC has been turning a blind eye, and that Elliot Spitzer has been carrying water for these hedge funds. And all along, it's very clear that Elliot Spitzer's prosecutions were being driven by information that certain competing journalists, I won't mention, was giving them. And if you look at the lawsuits coming in from Milberg Weiss and the trading positions of certain hedge funds, it's exactly where I think Elliot Spitzer was all along a finger puppet for a couple powerful hedge funds.
But to be fair, I mean, he was also years before the hedge funds got big. I mean, he had a certain style that was intimidate and get you to fold. Now, you were not of that ilk, but many of your colleagues were. Was the better part of valor to say, settle with this guy, deal with this guy, than fight this guy because he was the man who authored the I'm an effing steamroller, right?
Now, Churchill said that an appeaser is somebody who thinks he can convince the crocodile to eat him last. You can't do that. When you see stuff like this, you know, when he was going after very good men, John Whitehead, Ken Langone, titans of industry, and saying to them the kind of stuff he was saying, I'm the steamroller, I'm going to get even with you. Spitzer's a guy who saw too many movies. You could tell right off. He was much intoxicated with his own power. And I just thought he was a bad guy. Anybody who says things like that, you know, is just a bad guy from the beginning.
You know, that's actually a good point. People who speak like that generally are weird. But nothing in that behavior or language would have given the remotest hint, I think, to some of this stuff on the side. Do you think, though, that demeanor was one that would risk all this stuff on the side, thinking you couldn't get caught or you're above it all or I'm the king, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That kind of demeanor, somebody who's so intoxicated with his own power, is an unstable personality. I actually have sort of different sentiments about the whole affair. I don't really like what I see going on now with Wall Street popping champagne corks and such. I used to work on Wall Street, and I know the culture. And I think I can safely say if we said, let he who is without sin pop the first champagne cork, Wall Street would be a pretty dry place this week.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting, that when they first heard about this news, a lot of them were whipping it up saying, you know, hey, the guy was always a pain in the butt. We're glad he's suffering his comeuppance here. But it was almost a naive reaction that, well, the sheriff's gone. We assume there are no more sheriffs, but there's still plenty of sheriffs, right?
There'll be better sheriffs, though. You see, I think
Explain that.
Well, I think Spitzer's the kind of sheriff who's not really a sheriff. He's a sort of a corrupt sheriff who's doing the dirty work for some mob guys who are trying to run the town. So having that sheriff get his comeuppance is a good step. But what we need are real sheriffs who enforce the law, not sheriffs who are selectively enforce the law like Spitzer was, who are really just doing the dirty work for some people.
But the practices that you found abhorrent are still out there, right? People
Absolutely.
Who would really gun and short a stock as much as they targeted you, something you were not too happy with. But those practices are alive and well and largely unpoliced.
You know, but just last week, it's funny, the SEC, and I've been highly critical of the SEC, but just in the last couple weeks, the SEC, Chris Cox came out last week and gave a speech that I could have written. It basically says naked shorting, which is different than shorting. Naked shorting is illegal manipulation. It's happening. We got to stop it. It's going on. Chris Cox just gave a speech that I couldn't have asked for anything more. So the SEC is finally...
But he didn't say it's illegal.
Yeah, he did. He did. Last week,
Well, he didn't. There's nothing anyone's doing to stop it.
Problem is, economists call it a captured regulator. When a regulator SEC was set up to protect Main Street from Wall Street. In fact, it's become, in my view, kind of a lapdog of Wall Street. But you got to remember the SEC is not monolithic, and there are people in it. Atkins is one, Chris Cox is another, who are actually trying to turn the SEC and get it back looking at Wall Street.
You're encouraged by that?
I'm very encouraged by that.
All right, Patrick Byrne, always good seeing you, my friend. Be well.
Congratulations on the great success of your show.
That's very nice coming from you. Thank you very much, Pat. Good seeing you again. Just a thought, can you imagine if Elliot Spitzer had gone after, I don't know, Evander Holyfield? Let's say he went after